Welcome to A Class Act, Conversations in Data and Leadership. I'm your host, Michael, and in every episode we'll go behind the scenes of great leadership, from key hires and scaling teams to human stories that shape the industry. This is where real conversations happen. Let's get into it. Welcome, Stephen. Really good to see you, and it's great to have you on the podcast. I was really excited when you agreed to come on, so thanks very much. The people who are listening to the podcast are going to get loads from your story. I've known you for quite some time now. I was trying to think in the car on the way to the podcast studio when I first met, and it was back at an event at Standard Life. I don't know, was that around about 2012 maybe? It was.
Yeah, it was, Michael. And thank you. Delighted to be with you. Always extremely insightful conversations with you, Michael. So I really appreciate it. Well over 10 years, a decade.
Definitely.
Really, and we're still looking so young.
Still looking good. That's all that running you're doing and keeping fat, eh? I don't know what your fastest 10k is these days, but it must be pretty quick anyway when I see your times coming in.
Yes. More marathons rather than 10Ks. Too old for 10Ks, really.
Just loving the marathon, a longer distance, not great. I've known you for a while, but it would be good to maybe just start the podcast, maybe just introduce yourself and tell the listeners what you're doing these days and what you've been up to.
I spent about 40 plus years in the world of financial services. That has been quite a journey in terms of career, but always with a driving purpose for wanting to drive change. I always thought the financial system could serve people and businesses better than it did in the past. So that's been my driver. I was invited to set up something called FinTech Scotland as an organisation at the beginning of 2018. And that's allowed us to develop the cluster around financial innovation with a fintech community and larger enterprises and universities and regulator and various others to develop the whole aspect of innovating in the world of financial services. And through the progress and success of that, since 2018, I made myself chair. Nicola Anderson took on the role of chief executive in 2022-23, I think it was. And that allowed me then to extend into other areas of financial innovation, particularly with UK government, setting up the Centre for Finance, Innovation and Technology, and also broader areas of industry cluster innovation, which is all about driving change to make things better for people and businesses and society.
I'm looking forward to getting into more details here, because you have led in some of the most dynamic corners of financial services. What first drew you towards leadership roles, and when did you realise you were good at it?
I'm not too sure about good. I'm still learning.
Of course.
And I do have bruises and scars to show for that 40 plus years that show maybe I've got some lessons I have learned. But number one driver was really, I came into financial services because I wanted to change it. And that was because of childhood experiences of what my family experienced from the financial world. And I thought, no, this is wrong. It could be done better. And so that's always been my driving purpose. Let's make things better. Because at the end of the day, money is important to everyone, person, the family, communities, businesses, everyone really. It can be made better. So that was always my driver where I came in. I didn't necessarily come into that world in the early 1980s with a view to becoming a leader.
Yeah.
But what I learned is that over time, once you can develop all the skills, the understanding, the knowledge, the experience, you can have a bigger impact if you involve a bigger group of people.
Yeah, definitely.
And actually, if you can influence those people to actually drive behind a common agenda of positive change through innovation, then you can have a bigger impact. Therefore, really, you need to develop skills around leadership, because it can't be just about telling people to do something. You've got to lead them, and particularly if they don't even work for you directly. So it was leadership. I recognised the opportunity to have a bigger impact rather than trying to do it all on your own.
Yeah, 100%. And I think just a theme of past podcasts and different leaders I've spoke to throughout the years, that having the right people around you as well is just as vital in developing them and bringing them on and helping them get to leadership positions themselves, essentially.
Yeah, that's true. I think that what you learn, because obviously you grow, once you became part of a big organisation, you can become a manager. But managing and leadership is different. Managing, you are managing. With leading, really, you actually can stretch much broader in terms of the people that work with you. And they don't have to be directly in your team. You can actually influence people within the organisation, outside your team, and in other organisations. And that makes the size of the team and the impact even more beneficial, rather than focusing on a narrow team that you manage. The other point, as you rightly point out, Michael, is what you learn as a leader, it doesn't mean you have to be an expert in everything and do everything. Well, we met in around 2012 around data. I'm not a data scientist, a data analyst as they were called back then, but I recognize the importance of data as a form of fuel that could drive change.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
If you bring in different people with that expertise and understanding to become part of the team. So that's the key point I see as leadership.
And I think, again, I did speak about this before, but back in round about 2012, we spoke about it was the bridge, we called this person, and it was someone who could be in a leadership position, who could really understand the business and influence the exec team, but also work with the data teams and the data people and get the message across to deliver change within organisations.
I think that being as a leader, engaging and empathising with the different people with different skills and being that connective glue, whether it's at senior level or, say, data analysts and technologies or software developers, and being that you're going to have an impact of bringing things together more so than ever before. I remember when we were using that phrase, not so much used today, that data is the new oil.
That's right.
And we used to talk about, obviously, there's lots of oil, and oil is great, but you get it out of the ground, that's fine, but it's what you do with it.
Yeah.
And that's the point about data. It's what you apply to bring about a positive change to a person or to a business. Because oil on its own is pretty useless.
100%. And when we were speaking back then, it was like this was the rise of big data. I can remember it was like hashtag big data. It was 7 or 8 years of that. And now you don't even hear that phrase being spoken about. It's unbelievable. Okay, so you've worked in both large corporate and fast-moving innovative environments. How would you describe your leadership style and how has it evolved over the years?
I think your second point there is my leadership style has changed a lot. You get the impression that, and as a leader in those early days, I'm talking about when I really got my first directorship back in the early 1990s. I thought actually directing was all about follow me over the hills. We're going to achieve this. I've got the flag. Come with me. And it's all about cheering people along and just getting them excited and driving them on, which is fun. Yeah. But when you need diverse teams, that type of rah-rah session doesn't appeal to everyone.
No, definitely.
But it does put people away.
100%.
And what I've learned on my journey is that actually leadership is where you have to develop different elements of it really over time. And some of those things you become much more accomplished with, and other bits really you have to learn and work really hard at. So my analogy I use, Michael, what I've developed is you think of golf, and I'm not really a very good golfer, but to get around a golf course successfully or effectively, you need to have those 7 or 8 clubs in the bag. You can't just use that one club or the one style of leadership on every shot of the golf course. So if you're trying to use a putter from the tee off all the way through, it's going to be hard work. You're not going to be very successful at all. So how do you develop the other golf clubs of leadership in order to use at the right time in the right way, that to the extent you become proficient in all of them? There's some of them you always prefer. I always used to prefer the 5-iron for whatever reason. I didn't like the woods necessarily. I wasn't always comfortable with the sand wedge. But sometimes you will end up on the sand, or sometimes you are on a 500-yard hole that you need those long shots. So how do you develop the other golf clubs? And that's what I've learned over time is using the different golf clubs. And that's the journey. And sometimes you get it completely wrong and you learn from that. And sometimes you put it, but it's a constant learning exercise.
I think a lot of that comes with experience as well. And I think it's vital for maybe people moving into their first leadership role or maybe being promoted to have good people with experience around them as well. I can look at when I first started my business MBN like 18 years ago. I don't even recognise myself from back then, and I sometimes think I can cringe as well, if I'm being honest, but it's where I was at that time. I just came out an environment that was like that, and how important it is to have people, different leadership people around you as well with different qualities. No, it makes me think.
You get the feeling when you start on that leadership role that you need to give the perception that you know everything, you can do everything, and you are the expert across the board, really. And therefore, you're not being true to yourself and you're not being true to other people. And what you learn through experience is actually it's okay to say, I don't know, or I need to work that through, or I'm not an expert in that. That doesn't negate you being a good leader.
Yeah, a better leader, I think.
Sort of openness and transparency is really hard to learn initially.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. 100%. So many people talk about inclusive leadership. You definitely have lived it. What does that mean to you in practice, and how do you create the conditions for it?
What I learned really early on is you learn far more and you're far more effective if you are approachable, and you're approachable whether it's at senior level or whether it's the person in reception or the person really the security guard. It's like you can engage and you're approachable. You can have those conversations. Really, it's actually you're gaining insights from the breadth of people around you and that you work with and that impact your environment, rather than actually saying, I'll make myself exclusive and I'll just speak to these people in these certain ways. So dismissing a form of aloofness, I call it living leadership. You're actually coming off the mountain of being on the top of the mountain as a leader, actually down in living the leadership with all sorts of people. And inclusiveness is about that, embracing people of all different types of skills, backgrounds, experiences, because that richness of diverse skills and people helps you be far more effective.
Yeah, taking that time to actually get to know people who you're leading as well and find out how they work and how they like to be maybe like managed and led as well. I think that's so important within organisations.
It is. It's like an investment. And people, whatever level they are, not stupid. They can see actually whether you're just either brushing them aside or not so interested. And that's not so easy when you try to do so many things.
Yeah.
But see the engagement with people inside and outside the organisation as an investment, rather than something, if I speak to you, what do I get back?
I think when you understand how people like to work as well and how they just, I've got loads of examples of that myself. I think as I'm talking, I'm just thinking about different people I've worked with within my organisations and other organisations where people might think how to put this into words, but it's not until you really get to know them, like kind of what makes them tick and what not, and even their personalities as well. There might be like personality clashes, and when you get to know somebody well, you know that's just their kind of personality and how they see things, and they might see things different from you, which is okay as well. So quite excited to talk about FinTech Scotland. Obviously this has been like a vision to an ecosystem. It's been absolutely wonderful to kind of watch that from the very, very start and how it was being created to see where it is now. It's like a global powerhouse now. It's absolutely brilliant. And you were at the heart of creating and growing FinTech Scotland into a global respected cluster. What were the pivotal leadership moments in building that from the ground up?
The key, obviously there's the outset, the catalyst really, of recognising we needed to create something different as a leadership body. And whilst there was a lot of clamouring as to what it could be and who should be, it's a few parties that really got behind, University of Edinburgh being one actually, HSBC, Lloyds being another. Others actually stood on the sidelines. So whilst they said they were interested, they weren't necessarily prepared to put their shoulder to the wheel, interestingly. Happy with the talk, but not the walk. So you had to get on and do something, really. The key with that is actually demonstrate by doing things, creating a community, focus on particular areas of financial innovation. In particular, it was open banking, as you remember, Michael, and open finance really was a key area of development. And based on those actions and the outcomes, more things started to develop. And then more strategic partners wanted to be part of it. As the community grew from 26 firms to well over sort of 200, 250 over the years, and a number of big partners went from that Lloyds and HSBC now to all the global financial organizations, from JP Morgan and Barclays, all in NatWest, all became part of because they didn't want to miss out. And they saw the value in what was being done. The other part that we're very key is with FinTech Scotland is there's a lot of great activity and innovation going on, entrepreneurship. And all the players, I call it, were on the pitch. The entrepreneurs, the big companies, the tech, the investors, the universities, the public sector, they're all there. So I was quite clear, my role with FinTech was not to be on the pitch. You didn't need another player kicking the ball. You needed someone to be a coach on the side of the pitch. So FinTech Scotland is effectively a coach on the side of the pitch and thinking about how can I get these players to play better together, more effective, score more goals, win more games. And that's the model of it, rather than trying to be in there doing everything. And
it's having that holistic view of it where you're not in the trenches and you can really advise. I mean, it's been absolutely amazing for Scotland, and it's going very strong at the moment. I've just watched some of the things he's are doing and some of the kind of global initiatives and projects. Really good. Okay, like ecosystem building does require aligning very different agendas. As you mentioned, you've got universities, regulators, founders, government, all of this. How do you keep everyone moving in the same direction? You probably don't, but how do you try and keep everybody moving in the same direction?
Number one, it's a great question. Number one is you focus on actually the purpose and the outcome you're going for, whether they're creating jobs or changing some aspect of financial innovation, whether it's around the regulatory sort of side, open banking, financial inclusion. You focus on what you're trying to do, for example, helping vulnerable customers or addressing financial crime. And then you get the parties who are prepared really to, one, be on the pitch, collaborate rather than be in competition with each other. And that means putting aside their own sort of personal sort of agendas and think, actually, if we come together, the collective, the whole, helps the tide rise for everybody. That means that not everybody, and that's where you can't please everybody all the time.
Yeah.
Not everybody actually comes on the pitch. And you accept that. And you're very happy to stand on the sidelines, but actually we're going to focus on those who are prepared to put their shoulders to the wheel, invest in the ecosystem with a view then the tide rises and that everybody benefits. And there's a benefit from that collective endeavour that benefits the entrepreneur as well as the large company, as well as the universities.
Yeah.
And it's that we call it the triple helix of public sector, industry and academia coming together around a sweet spot of a real purpose of change.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen that the change within Scotland over the past kind of 10 years has been unbelievable with yourselves and the data lab and lots of different initiatives. I was there from the very, very start, and I just even look at the data industry. I started the meetup, so that was like 10 years ago, and just the difference from 2015 to now has been extraordinary. And the talent coming through, the different diverse talent, and just the work the universities have done to really nurture talent and nurture business. It's been brilliant. I think when I first started at MBN in 2008, probably most of my 2007, the financial crisis came in 2008, that's why I always think that, but most of my work would have been London because there wasn't much data happening in Scotland. There was with the large scale legacy like banking and stuff like that, but just outside that, like start-ups, spin-ups, scale-ups. So it's been a real hotbed for business now, which is great. And you've also worked closely with both public and private sectors leaders. What do you think the traits are that separate good leaders from great ones in your view? Obviously, there's no right or wrong answer for this one.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about good or not so good always, but I'd say it's those at different stages of their journey of experience. And unfortunately, some leaders get very locked in their way and are very kind of insular and protective. They don't put themselves out. So good leaders are actually use a huge amount of emotional intelligence, but actually put themselves into the shoes of the customer or the business or the party they're looking to work with and work back from that, rather than start with the best. I've got this and I want to push it out, or I've got this policy as a civil servant, I need to get that out. So they don't start from the in going out, they start from the out coming in and then shape things accordingly. That's what a real leader does. The other thing that leaders do is they look, you've touched on it a couple of times already, Michael, the diversity of the people that they work with and teams. So they're not locked into working into a department that's full of, I'll say this as a lawyer, lawyers, or all that group think really, because that's so dangerous, but also limits the creativity. So they're actually stretched out. And one of the things we're very proud of at FinTech Scotland is we've made the FinTech community very inclusive. So some of the businesses started in health innovation or in space tech or in oil and gas, but they felt comfortable coming into FinTech because actually they bring in new things that actually financial people wouldn't have thought of. And we have this little saying, as you may have heard before, Michael, FinTech, financial innovation, is far too important to leave up to the financial services industry. Look at all the rubbish stuff they've done in the past. I can say that because I've been part of it. But you need different people in, and leaders embrace that and bring it in.
Yeah, no, great answer. Really good. I understand that more as I've kind of been in business longer myself, but probably I can always remember hearing people when I was first in business and trying to move into leadership about like you need different people and other people on your board and stuff like that. But I had never quite got it until quite recently, if I'm being totally honest with you, when I've started working with different other people and different projects and bringing people into MBA, and then you just you get that light bulb moment. It takes me sometimes a lot longer for things to come. I need to realise things myself, but no, it makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that. And you've inspired a whole generation of fintech leaders in Scotland and beyond. When you reflect on the impact you have made, what are you most proud of?
That's a great question. I'm proud of the fintech team and Nicola Anderson, the chief executive, and the team there, Vicky Gorman and Reall. The way that they conduct themselves, not just their professionalism, but their engagement and their sort of leadership and their sort of drive. I'm just so proud of that. That gives me a huge amount of pride.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're very proud about the reputation that has been built, really, and the opportunity to share that with other industries in how to develop a cluster, but also other parts of the fintech community in the UK, working with the team, for example, helping the team in the northeast of England, Newcastle, Sunderland, in developing the cluster there, but clusters elsewhere. The work I do from London in sharing what we've done in Scotland is also helpful to help London develop and the rest of the UK. So the fact that we get invited to share our experiences, what's worked, what's gone wrong, how to improve, and how to replicate makes me very proud, really, because it means that you've done something that people want to learn from, and that gives a real buzz.
I know there's no greater honour, really, when other clusters in different departments and companies are asking you in to share your story. And I know, obviously, Nicola and Michael as well, brilliant and really good people and doing an amazing job. So that's great team, really good team. Okay, let's talk about your OBE then. So I don't think I've really spoke to you since. We've dropped a few messages here and there, but obviously it's a huge recognition. Absolutely amazing. Congratulations again. So what did that honour represent to you, and who came to mind when you received it?
It's a bit of a shock, and you doubt, really? Is that really?
Yeah.
Is that really appropriate even? But the way I looked upon it after I talked it through with my wife really is that actually it's a kind of a recognition of those that are around you that have supported me. I wouldn't be here without them. That's obviously family, close friends, people who provided coaching insight to me, and like the FinTech Scotland team and the other sort of teams I've worked with. It's a kind of a recognition of what they've done. And I'm just the person picking up the trophy, but it's a recognition of all that other work and the role that they've played. So you feel, is it right? Should I? But it also recognises the people around you and very close people around you, about showing them some respect and value that it's been, really. And you can't do these things on your own.
Definitely.
So, it was a bit of a taken back, and had a wonderful day on the day that received it with the sort of family. It does sort of stay with you, but just gives you that sort of encouragement really to push on and think about how you share that more in terms of what you've achieved and the leadership, as we touched on earlier.
Yeah, no, I think that was answered like a true leader there, not taking full recognition and just appreciating the people around you. I think that's so important for leaders, so really good. So the OBE is about service and recognition. What do you hope your leadership legacy will be for the next wave of talent in fintech and beyond?
I think and there's lots and lots of examples where the financial world, I believe, is better because of fintech or financial innovation in many respects, whether that's addressing customer vulnerabilities. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen actually some of my relatives have benefited as a result of innovation in a particular way from fintechs based in Scotland who have led that financial inclusion, financial crime, but even businesses, small businesses benefiting far more now. In a way, there's lots of micro examples, Michael, in terms of the legacy that's built up. I think the other thing I feel quite excited about in terms of legacy is there's more people want to be involved in fintech than before. It's brought people in who wouldn't normally have thought of changing the financial world for the better using new technologies and data. People who've started off from very different backgrounds, who have gone a different career path, but are now in the world of financial innovation. And I meet so many people who've started from a very different footing, but have gone to a personal experience where the financial world, a bit like I did as I'm growing up, that isn't working for them. So rather than just accept it, I'm going to get in there, use my knowledge of technology, use my business understanding, and get that changed.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's so motivating.
100%. I was actually speaking to we're looking at hiring across MBN at the moment, and but AI, obviously we've been in data and AI for a while now, but probably our next hire is going to be like somebody just solely within AI and like FinTech, just really focused on the market because of the amount of innovation and where it's going. And really, no, great, ideal.
Yeah, I think you mentioned earlier, Michael, about inclusiveness. And I think the point there is, think of FinTech as like a car. In the old days, the car would have just been driven by a small number of people.
Yeah.
But now FinTech has actually made it that more and more people drive cars in different sort of ways. So that's why sometimes also we refer to FinTech being the new punk rock. When I was punk rock, meant that broke down music that anyone could get up there and sing a musical instrument, even though you had to learn it as you go, really. FinTech's opened up, a bit like punk rock for the music industry, has opened up financial innovation.
Well, for punk rock, golf and football, this is brilliant. I love them all. Ideal. You are still deeply involved in shaping innovation through different organisations that see fit, and I think University in Strathclyde and more. But what would you say keeps you energised and focused right now?
The same reason why number one is why I came into the financial world in the first place back in those early 1980s, to drive things, to make things better. And what's exciting today compared to the 80s, obviously technology was less to the fore. The use of data was less to the fore back then, 40 plus years ago. But the opportunity that you can bring about even more change. And whilst the challenges are there, the opportunities to make things sort of better. So that remains sort of the motivation. And I think it's just, as we touched on, really, there's so many examples out there, and you want to leave that legacy of more and more people coming in, because as we touched on, leadership is about lots of people being involved, not just one or two. And that living leadership is something I really live by. And I learned a lot. I don't read much actually, but I did read a fair amount about Charles Handys, one of the authors, philosopher, business guru, really. And his books, particularly if you read the book about how to take innovation onto the next level, or any sort of development, whether personally or business or community to the next level, you do so when you're on a position of on the upward rather than when it's on the downward. And you learn from that. So people like Charles Handy have always, and his insights have always meant you've got that burning desire to continue, be a continuum.
Yeah, when you've got that energy about you and that desire, and it's driving you, get you out of your bed and getting you going, you're unstoppable when you feel like that. And life's good when you've got that drive in you as well. You definitely feel alive. I identify with that. My own personal life as well. Just I'm still driven out every day and ready to go and loving what I do, which is a good place to be. Okay, finally, for emerging leaders listening to this, what's the one piece of leadership advice you'd want them to take away from your personal journey?
I'd say two, actually. Be clear on your own purpose. Back to what we just talked about. What's your internal personal drive, your inner sort of belief, your inner core, what's driving you? And while sometimes the flames of that will die a little bit and other times it will pick up, it will go through stages, really. Always remain true to your own purpose, what you're about, what you're trying to do and you achieve, really. And understand your realness about that and share that with people. Don't be frightened about sharing. This is what really gets me out of bed in the morning. It can't be just about money or being the most successful career or the next level in the organisation. There's got to be a burning purpose, really. And sometimes people refer to it as the why, the Simon Sinek why. The second one really is focus on leadership as a journey, not as an end. So it's not about getting to a particular position or achieving something within an organisation. Enjoy the journey. And whilst it's a bit of a zigzag, and certainly ups and downs, and you will get bruises and scars in many different places, in different forms. Embrace the journey and take it on and use it as a learning exercise that you build on over sort of time. So rather than sometimes there's overly a focus on, I'm going to get to this position. I must be a director. I must be running this. Well, hold on. Yeah, that's good to have that ambition, but look at the journey and how best to embrace it.
Brilliant. Certainly energised myself after listening to you. I've got a lot of the same philosophies as well, and like talking about the why and the enjoying the journey and the ups and downs as well, because it's at times it can be very tough, especially in certain markets as well. My journey's not been really just up down, it's been a real roller coaster, and it continues to be to this day. It can change on a daily and weekly basis at the now. So I think just really appreciating, as you said, where you are and looking at it as a journey and a challenge, an adventure, and not thinking, getting too fixated on once I get to here, that'll be the end of the journey, because I can imagine in your career you probably thought, if I get here, that'll be me. Then you get here, then you go to here, then here and here. So now, what an incredible journey, Stephen. I've really enjoyed this. I think that it's going to be really well taken by people who are tuning into the podcast as well. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on, really is. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule, and we'll definitely need to catch up soon. But Stephen, thanks very much. If there's anything else you want to add, but I really appreciate this.
No, thank you, Mike. I think really appreciate this opportunity, but I must sort of say I've always appreciated your collaboration and friendship, you and your team, really, through many years, certainly the FinTech Scotland years, but even before that. And I think that's the key, really. And whilst you and I have not had the opportunity to get together over more recent sort of years, we just know we're there and that you can reach out, really. And definitely. I think you build up that sort of engagement and friendship over time, and that in itself makes life worthwhile.
100%.
And make it enjoyable.
Thanks very much. Kind words as well. Thanks for listening to A Class Act. If you've enjoyed the episode, make sure to follow the show so you never miss a conversation. And if you're building a data team or making a key leadership hire, reach out to us at MBN Solution using the link in the show notes.